and they said, you're actually done with gymnastics forever. Like whole world was like turned upside down. I was like, what? When you're not cleared, you're not actually able to be in the gym. So I felt super isolated from like the people who were supposed to be my new teammates. I wasn't really allowed in the locker room. It was like this really awkward in between. Going into my freshman year, finally I'm able to clear it. I was feeling really good. And then I felt a big pop in my left knee. It ended up being a full ACL tear. So that next season, I wasn't quite ready to be competing. So that was 2 of my seasons that I missed. And then the next summer, I actually went back home to St. George to keep training. And when I came back, I actually tore my ACL again. And so that was like right there in that moment, my biggest heartbreak ever, probably, because I had just gone through everything I had to get back from it. It took over a year and some, trying there, putting my whole heart, body, soul into it. And then I tore it again. And I knew I had to do the whole process over again. And so I did.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the PerformHappy Podcast. I am excited today to have somebody on who I think absolutely personifies Perform Happy. You know, this is a person who literally went viral because she is a Perform Happy athlete. So she is, I think, best known for her Barbie Girl floor routine. Welcome to the show, former collegiate athlete Rebekah Bean Ripley.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And that's like the best compliment, the way you put that together. That's like Perform Happy. I love that. Thank you.
Yes, that is my mission with this podcast, with everything I do, is to show that the best athletes are the happy ones. That you don't have to have like this strict, must be perfect. You can't have a childhood. You can't have a life. Like, I actually really want to turn that on its head.
Gosh, I love that. I feel like we could have a whole 2-hour conversation on that. Like, I love that so much.
Yeah. And so you're joyful, you're creative, you're a performer. Would you kind of just take us through your story as an athlete of like how you got started to where you are today?
Yeah. So I feel like a huge part of my gymnastics journey has seriously been just loving it and feeling so much joy. I was very blessed to have parents who were very laid back about gymnastics. They were like, oh, you love doing this? Great, you can keep doing it. And I never felt any pressure from them. It was truly just coming from me. It was because I loved it. It was because I wanted to do it. And I know that a lot of other kids don't have that type of experience. And so it's something that I'm extremely grateful for, that I got to grow up that way. But yeah, I started gymnastics when I was about 2 or 3 years old. So kind of your typical gymnast who starts really young. I did, levels 4 through 5 or 6, I think. I think I did 4 and 5. And then I actually did Excel for a few years. I did Platinum. And that was another really huge part of my gymnastic story that I think sets me apart, because Excel was where I tell people is where I truly fell in love with gymnastics. I love the outlook of Excel, and that it was about embracing you and having fun. It fit my schedule for my family. And so that's why we did Excel. That I did that for a few years. And then the year after that, I did level 7, 8, and 9 in 1 year because I was ready to go into the DP program. And then I went into level 10 the following year. I'm sorry, I'm giving you the whole thing. And then I went to level 10, and then I got recruited to BYU, which is where I started my collegiate career.
Yeah, I wish Excel existed when I was competing. I think I would have stuck with it so much longer.
It was literally like, just every kid is different and you all have different needs. And I remember it was just better for my family. It was cheaper, easier schedule. And I think if that hadn't been available to me, I would have quit. I had a moment where I was like, oh, I just want to have fun, and this is too many hours for me. And I think that's the reason it allowed me to move into this program where I could enjoy it and have it be more flexible.
Yes. Well, and what drives me nuts is that there are so many people who are like, well, if you can't commit, then just do Excel, or it's sort of like you get demoted out of the DP track. And one of the top recruits in the nation right now, Galilee Vestinis, who just signed at Utah, did Excel like from the beginning. Her parents were like, let's not go too crazy on this. Like, let's just, ease in and have some fun. And so she was able to just love gymnastics. And then she's like, wait, I want more. Okay, I want to work harder. I want to increase my hours. Like I'm seeing more and more of those stories that it doesn't have to be that you start at 3, you train 500 hours a week, and then you're like broken and bruised and sad by the time you get to college.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, I actually didn't know that about her. And I love that that's becoming more normalized in the gymnastics world because you're right. All up until then, it's been like you can only be a high level athlete if you're very strict. And so, yeah, I love that that's becoming less norm.
And so that makes me think about your gym, your club. You were in Utah, but you were at a little gym where
Uh,
you were the top athlete. I remember you had said people were nice to you, that you
yeah,
had kind of this warm environment. Would you talk a little bit about like that warm environment and how that kept you in the sport longer?
yeah. I just being in Excel and this coach that I had, she was just always so kind, so supportive, just like I'm here to help you with whatever your goals are. And I thought that that was just amazing, a place where I could fall in love with gymnastics. But I will say one thing that was pretty difficult about being in such a small gym and being kind of at the level that I was that there weren't other people that I felt like I was learning from. It was kind of, I was the one who was setting the standard for the gym, which was pretty difficult for me to like try big new skills. There had never been a level 10. So I didn't have somebody to watch their Jaeger and learn how to do that. I kind of had to figure it out myself with coaches who were also learning how to coach level 10. It was a learning process for all of it, but I think that's also what made it so beautiful because we just had this coach athlete relationship that was able to just grow.
Well, and I imagine there was some humility in that. I coached a girl who I had never coached beyond level 7, and then she goes to 8, and then she goes to 9, and I'm like, I'm coaching level 9 beam here, and I never did level 9 beam, and then she ends up going to UCLA. Like it was this incredible thing where I was like, girl, you and me are learning together. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and we're going to make sure that we get this right. And I think when coaches have that humility, it can really create a great bond. That's what I've noticed.
Gosh, I really love that about your story. That is so cool. I love the humility, like you said, that you have to have as a coach as well. I think that's beautiful.
Yep. I was like, hold on, I'm going to go ask the head coach. Wait a
Yeah,
second. Or could you come with me and help me teach this? And I mean, I think the more coaches are open and just being beginners, the better. Even someone who's been coaching 30 years. And you're a coach as well. Are you still coaching?
yeah. I coach the level 3 team at Momentum Gymnastics in American Fork, and it has been like the best experience for me ever to coach all the way down to level 3 to know the like gymnastics fundamentals, how to talk to kids that age, kind of the mental cues they need to hear. And it's been a really, really good experience to grow as a coach.
Oh my gosh, I bet those kids just adore you.
I love them.
So sweet. How lucky would they be to have you as a
Oh,
coach?
thank you. That's
Aw.
nice of you.
Okay, now let's go injuries because I know that was a big part of your story. Were you injured pre-college or was it just in college that you experienced injuries? What was your injury story?
So I was actually a pretty healthy kid growing up, again, because I had that flexibility. It wasn't like crazy, crazy strict, but I did have a lower back injury where I had some bulging discs my junior year of high school. So coming to my senior year of high school, it was still something I was managing, but I got really good at like doing my rehab and staying on top of things. So by the time I was going into college, I actually had no pain in my back. I had managed it. I felt really great, but I had an MRI to get cleared, right? You have to go through the whole doctor process to be able to train as a college athlete. And they actually sat me down in a meeting and they said, you're actually done with gymnastics forever because of your back. And I was like, whole world was like turned upside down. I was like, what? Nothing hurts. I feel great. And so that was like just the starting point of that injury recovery, how things went at BYU story. That was like the first heartbreak of many.
Okay, so obviously you did gymnastics after this point. So
Yeah.
what happened? What happened next?
So going into that next summertime, right? When you're not cleared, you're not actually able to be in the gym. So I felt super isolated from like the people who were supposed to be my new teammates. I wasn't really allowed in the locker room. It was like this really awkward in between. But I actually met with a lot of doctors, and it actually was a doctor at the University of Utah that they really respected. And it was actually a hilarious appointment. I went in there, he said, do a plank on your side, do a plank on your other side. And he's like, none of that hurts. You're good. And then I was cleared.
Wow. Okay. Modern medicine is baffling, but okay.
Okay. But yeah, so after that, I'll kind of give you like the brief rundown of the rest of kind of that injury story. Going into my freshman year, finally I'm able to clear it. I was feeling really good. And I actually was competing on vault and floor for BYU for my first like 5 competitions. And then I felt a big pop in my left knee after my vault. It was a home competition. I did my vault, which is a front handspring pike half. It was the best vault I had ever done in competition. And I had a huge pop in my left knee, and it only hurt for like 20 seconds. And so it was crazy. And then it ended up being a full ACL tear. So that tear happened midway through season. And for those listening who maybe don't know much about what an ACL recovery looks like, it's about a year recovery to get back to your sport, give or take. Everybody's different, but mine took me about a year. So that put me right in the middle of competition season again. So that next season, I wasn't quite ready to be competing. So that was 2 of my seasons that I missed. And then the next summer, I actually went back home to St. George to keep training. And when I came back, we were back on BYU's schedule, and I actually tore my ACL again. And so that was like right there in that moment, my biggest heartbreak ever, probably, because I had just gone through everything I had to get back from it. It took over a year and some trying there, putting my whole heart, body, soul into it. And then I tore it again. And I knew I had to do the whole process over again. And so I did. I did the whole process. It took me about a year and a half because it was on the same knee. And so after that, I missed the following season. And then coming into the next season, I felt amazing. I was doing my routines. I was hitting them. My knee felt great. I actually got to exhibition my Barbie routine for the first time just once in competition. And I did a couple vaults as well. And then I tore my meniscus the next day in practice. So it took me another few months. Luckily, that meniscus was way easier than any ACL. And after that, I finally had a preseason to train, which I hadn't had up until then. So I had that preseason, perfected the Barbie routine. And then finally, my 5th year as a senior, I competed at every single competition on both vault and floor. And that was like the best year of my life.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this makes me think of a family that I'm working with in PerformHappy. And the mom literally today said, okay, my kid's back in a boot. She's a level 9. And it's like kind of this injury after injury after injury. And she's like, not asking this seriously, but she's like, at what point do we just pull the plug because of all of the disappointment and all of the suffering that these poor kids have to go through? Because all they want to do is just do their sport.
Absolutely.
So what do you say to that family who's just on this injury roller coaster?
Yeah. Every kid is different. And I say this all the time to athletes who are coming back from an injury. And it's that quitting isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. You kind of have to pick what's important. I think it takes just as much bravery and strength to walk away from a sport and say, this isn't worth it to me. But for me and my story, something was telling me to keep going. And that's going to be different for everybody. But that disappointment happening over and over and over again was the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through in my entire life. And it broke my heart over and over. And I just had a hard relationship with gymnastics, being like, how do I trust myself? How do I trust my body again? And every time I talk about it, I get a little bit emotional. But there's just a lot of emotions. And I just tell any athlete, listen to your heart.
And I look at athletes who have come back and come back and come back.
Yeah.
Those are the ones who are the most resilient. They are probably even the most optimistic at the end, because it's like, well, what else are you going to throw at me? Like, I can handle it. I literally can handle this.
Yeah.
So how did that experience change you as a human?
Oh my gosh, like completely transformed me. I actually had this moment. It was a video on Instagram that my mom sent me, actually. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but for some reason, the messaging stuck with me. But it basically, I had this epiphany moment where I was like, I don't have control. But like, you might look at that and feel like it's a negative thing, but to me, it was a very freeing thing. I was like, I don't have to stress about this. I don't have to stress about getting my routines, competing again. Like, that's not my responsibility. The only thing I can focus on is doing my best. and trying and showing up and being happy in my gymnastics. I had this moment where I was like, you know what? I don't care if I compete again. I don't care if I never do gymnastics again. But for the next amount of time that I have left in my senior year, I'm going to enjoy whatever I have left with it. And that changed everything. I suddenly like took away that like weight and the pressure that I felt, and I started having fun and I started enjoying gymnastics. And that's when I physically started feeling better, because your mind and your body, they're completely connected. When my mind felt better, my body started performing better, and I just focused on having fun. And that's why that year was the best year of my life.
Oh my gosh, amazing. I think anybody listening who's had a hard thing, which is pretty much anyone who's been on the planet long enough to have a hard thing, we've all had a hard thing. And that is like, I can relate to that so much, where it just, okay, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, I surrender. I'm not in charge of this thing. I'm just going to like put one foot in front of the other and see what comes next. And that really is just such a freeing way to live, especially as an athlete, to go, okay, I'm just going to show up today and move my feet. I'm going to show up today and do what's asked of me. I'm going to show up today if it's like college feels hard or whatever. I'm going to show up today and just sit in the front and listen. I'm just going to do what's in front of me right now and let the rest go.
Yeah.
And that there's so much joy that you can access from living that way.
Totally. And that right there is what transformed like my brain for the rest of my life, because that lesson took years. It took like years of stubbornness, being like, no, I'm going to do this because I feel like I have to. And it took years of just like that strictness that I put myself into. And then that last year, I was like, you know what, whatever. And now I'm going to carry that throughout. You know, these are things like you have to surrender to the unknown. Just do your best and keep a positive attitude and, you know, make goals, have dreams, but you kind of have to be flexible sometimes with them and see where it takes you.
Absolutely. Yes, that's like the best, the most healthy way to have big, beautiful dreams, and yet kind of a flexible, loose grasp on them as you pursue them. Yes. Okay, let's talk about Barbie. So who choreographed this routine? Did you have it brewing for 5 years before you got to do it? I mean, tell me the story of this, viral routine.
Got it. So I did. I choreographed it. I did probably like 90%. There were some holes that I needed filled. So my floor coach, Brogan Evans, she helped me like finish it, polish it. We worked on it together and like created and finished Barbie. But I actually remember I was in the gym. I was working on more of like a hip hop upbeat, because that's what I gravitate towards. And I had one of my friends tell me, she was like, I love the routines that have a theme. And I was like, yeah, I don't really know what theme I would do though. And she's the one that mentioned Barbie. I literally in that moment was like, oh my gosh, I have to do that. That's the best idea I've ever heard. And so after that, I went home immediately and watched YouTube videos on how to move like a Barbie doll and how to look robotic. And I started playing with the idea, coming up with some unique moves I could put in there. And then, over time, I picked all the different songs and which pieces I wanted where. And I worked with one of the music guys at BYU, and we mixed it together and, added the wink at the end, added the bubble pops and the squeaks. It was really a creative, collaborative effort where we all kind of put on our hats and created this thing. And then, just a lot of work. The first time I ever debuted it was not the year it went viral. That was when I did it I exhibitioned that routine, and then I got hurt the next day. And so the year after that was kind of great because I could perfect it. Like that was like a Barbie rough draft. And then the year after that, I was like, ooh, there's like some holes. Let's fill it in. Let's finish it. Let's perfect it. And that's kind of how Barbie came to be. And it was like the most good luck ever that's when the Barbie movie was coming out. That was not planned, but that was like just fate, I swear.
Wow. Absolutely. It's like when you just get drawn to something, you're like, this is it. You get that
sure.
like gut feeling of proceed, go, green light. Yep. And how fun is it to do that routine?
Oh my gosh. It was like, again, going on, this was the best year of my life, right? I was already having the best year of my life because I was doing gymnastics and I got to compete. And then on top of that, I got to do such a fun routine that resonated with people. And I remember thinking it was so weird and so cool that people were having like Barbie signs and they were wearing pink and they were chanting my name. And I was like, what's going on? This is crazy, but I'm loving it. And it was just awesome. It was so awesome.
And did it ever get distracting? Kind of having the spotlight on you now once...
I'm gonna be honest, I love the spotlight. I feel like I love being in the spotlight. And so I always love performing too. It like brings me so much joy to show all the hard work I've done. So instead of feeling like it was a distraction, I was like, oh, this is my opportunity. Like I have worked so hard for this. I'm gonna go do my thing.
And did you always love performing, or was that something that developed over time?
I've always loved performing. It's always been something that I've naturally been drawn to, even in like club routines or like compulsory routines when it's the same thing. I've always had a way of, adding myself and my own personality into it. And I don't really know where that comes from, but I love it. And it's, developed more and more over time. But yeah.
Yeah, good. And I think for anyone out there who's like, but I'm not a good dancer, I'm not a good performer. I think even just the attitude that you have of I love performing, that's something that you can put that on and go, you know what? What if I did? What if I pretend that I love to perform? And when I get on that floor, I am out here to put on a show. And like just that mindset of I love to perform exudes in a performance.
Oh yeah. And like even for a kid who thinks that they're not good at it, even though it's something I was naturally more good at, I still had to grow into it. It took time to really perfect it and figure out what my style is, where I wanted to put myself into it. It's not something that you just have for good. You have to practice it like any skill.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about the mental side of injury recovery. So a lot of athletes I work with are coming back from injury, and there's a fear of injury, which creates a higher likelihood of re-injury based on what research shows. So did you struggle mentally coming back, especially with that vault? I mean, did your brain resist the vault at all?
Yes. So the mental recovery is so much harder than the physical recovery, like mental and emotional, because I think one thing that's hard that sometimes coaches forget. I think my coaches at BYU forget this. They kind of think like it's just gymnastics. But to a gymnast, this is your whole life. This is what you've been working on for your entire life. It's not just gymnastics. It feels like it's part of your identity. It's not, but it feels like it. And so when you get into these moments when you want it so bad and you can't get it, it's painful. It's really painful. And so that mental recovery was such a hard shift to go into because, like I said before, I had to take it from I have to do this because it's part of me into and I get to do this and this is fun. But that block going into that vault, oh man, there was a lot of mental training that went behind this. I worked with a sports psychologist on how to breathe correctly, how to have the right words that I'm saying while I'm doing this vault to keep myself in the present moment. Because a lot of the times when that fear is there, it's because your brain is in the past or the future. You're thinking of what could go wrong or went wrong before, and it turns into the spiral. And so what he taught me is to use keywords, which are just the words you use in your brain that's going to make you know what to do, make your body know what to do. And so I would say like chest up, knees up on my run. I would focus exactly on what I was doing in this moment. And then I'd punch the board, chest up, drive heels. I had everything I was saying to myself. And I think that's what got me through it was staying in the present moment. And like I said before, surrendering. Being like, you know what, I can't control the outcome. So if I tear it again, it's not up to me. I shouldn't focus on it because that doesn't change my situation.
Absolutely. And it's not one of your keywords.
Nope, not one of my keywords. No.
No, and the mind wants to go to the worst case. We're wired as humans to think about everything that could go wrong. It's a survival instinct. We need it. It's helpful. Fear is like a really useful thing to have as an athlete. It's so important that in those critical moments, we train our minds to focus on what is important in this moment that will keep us safe, which the threat is not it. That's
absolutely.
Unless you're like literally being chased by a tiger. But even then, you don't want to focus on the tiger. You want to focus on the way out.
I'm running away from it. Yes.
Yep. On where you're headed, not I'm bad at this or I can't do that. You want to be like, and go.
Yes, absolutely.
And that focus on the technique is so critical when there are those perceived threats happening in the brain.
I do want to add one more thing too, because one thing that was also important to me was to not shove my feelings away. Like I had to let myself grieve. Like, even though when I started being healthy again and getting to do gymnastics, I remember being angry and being like, dang, like I have teammates who have gotten to do 4 years of this, learn how to fail, learn new skills. And so I had to let myself be sad about it for a little bit, feel those feelings and then accept them and move forward from them. And I think that's a really, really important step for anybody going through an injury recovery is to feel it. Don't shove it down, feel it. It's okay.
Absolutely. It's so important because it's like, I think of it like whack-a-mole or like shaking up a plastic soda bottle that you're like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. You're shaking this thing up and then all of a sudden like the cap comes off and you explode.
Totally.
And so it's so important, especially I think with fear, to just let it out a little bit. It's like you let that little tss of where you share and you talk, you let it out, you journal, whatever. You talk to a coach, you talk to teammates, just getting it out is so important and giving it space.
Absolutely.
And like I work with a lot of parents and the parents always want to just like fix it and make it better, make you happier and make you, send the right email or the right whatever to make the kid happy. It's like, well, no, actually, they just need to be sad with you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
They need to be mad with you. They need to be like at their wits' end and giving up. And that's why that mom, it was like, well, how much is too much? I'm like, well, she can handle this. We know she can handle this. And
absolutely.
She just needs you to be there in it with her, which can be so painful as a parent, but it's part of that healing process is to acknowledge all of the reality of the situation.
Absolutely. And, I've never been a parent to a gymnast. I hope one day I'll get to be. But as the gymnast, that's the best thing you could have from a parent. And I feel like that's what I had from my mom and my dad was just constant support. And they told me all the time, like through those injuries, they were like, you got it. You can do it. But again, they would say, you don't have to. It's not something that you're being forced to do. This is up to you. But if you want it, you can do it. And that's exactly what I needed. And I think that every athlete needs is just being told, you can handle it if you want to.
Yes, the autonomy piece. When an athlete feels like they're doing it because it's what I've always done, or it's who I am, or it's what's expected of me, or my family's made all these sacrifices, that's when burnout happens.
Absolutely.
Even if you're passionate about it, burnout is around the corner if you're not doing it for yourself.
Yes.
Did you ever have any glimmers of that as an athlete?
I mean, I would just say through the injury recovery, that was the burnout. It was more of an emotional burnout that was like, what's the point of recovering if I'm just going to get hurt again? Like, why am I doing this? I had a lot of that with every injury being like, ugh, like, is this a sign? Am I supposed to stop? But it was just, again, believing in myself, taking one step at a time, seeing what I'm capable of. And that's just what it takes. And that word is just resilience. It's just to keep trying. I failed over and over and over again, but with resilience, you can do anything. You just keep showing up, keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. And that back to that grit. If you know you're there for you, I'm doing this because I want to be here, then that extra conditioning, that extra PT, that extra time, it's like, okay, I'll do it. You get this inner strength that comes from deciding I am doing this because I want to.
Yes.
Period.
And yes, period.
I want to do it. And that's why. And that's like, all parents are like, I want to motivate my athlete. I really want to get her like to want to do the PT and to want to take the private lessons. And I'm like, well, that's not for you to do.
Like ask her, does she want it?
Yes, exactly. That was my exact question was like, what does she want to do? And if she has to have a season where she's underperforming because she didn't apply herself in these ways, that's life, right? And I'd rather she learns that at 12 than at 30.
Yeah, right? Yes.
So I'd love to hear your take on motivation. If someone's like feeling down or feeling like, oh, I can't do it, feeling kind of negative, what are some great tips of how to kind of find that internal motivation?
Yeah. And, again, it's going to be different for every kid. If there's a kid, there might be someone really struggling and the answer for them, take a day off, take a day to breathe, reset, recover. But for another kid, they might need you to say, hey, you can do this and you got this, believe in yourself. But I think the best thing is just those motivational words. And then I ask like any of my level 3s when they're having a hard day or they feel like they can't do it, I just tell them to come up with a power statement, something they can say to themselves. I am brave. I'm confident. I can do this. I got this. And I say, okay, but you have to believe it. If you don't believe it, there's no point in saying it. And so I make them create something like that. And so that it comes from within, I can say it first, but then I say, okay, now you say it, and they have to repeat it. So it becomes something they believe and they can continue.
Mm. And that can be tricky too, because some of us, I notice, especially real smart kids, very sensitive, very smart kids, they would kind of sort of speak for myself here. I'm like, but wait a second. I'm always I'm like the head of the debate team in my own head around positivity. And so it's like, you got this. And my brain's like, no, I don't. So so how do you approach that when it's like positivity is just not landing with this one?
So, this is another thing I actually love talking about because positivity does not have to mean lying to yourself. There's a difference between saying, like, I know I'm the best athlete in the whole world, and saying, I can try my best on this next turn. I can try my hardest, and I believe that I'm going to give my full effort. If you go too far to where you don't believe it, then it's counterproductive because, like you said, you're the own judge in your head and you can smell the BS, and be like, I don't know if I fully believe that. And that's when you kind of go, like, no, okay, we got to reword that.
Yep. And I like to look at it like a spectrum of positive to negative instead of, so many gymnasts specifically, we're so black and white. We're
Yeah.
so like pass or fail. I hit handstand or I failed. I made it or I failed. I'm positive or I failed. And it's like, whoa, can we find the gray of if I'm the best in the world is not available to you right now, what are some facts that you can't argue with?
Yeah.
I've done it before. Is that a fact? Okay, great. We can say that. I got this doesn't feel true. Okay. I can lift my leg. I can push through my left foot. Those types of kind of technical check-ins. And like you talked about, your keywords can be
Yeah.
very helpful. If your mind is like, what if I can't, it feels off, it feels weird. It's like, okay, all those feelings are not actually necessarily factual in the moment.
Absolutely.
So what can you root into that is tangible and you can't argue with it? And I think, those words can be really helpful. Now, do you ever notice though that some kids are not audio learners and they struggle with words?
Yes, I worked with one athlete. The keywords just weren't working with her. Her brain liked to go other places. Like, every kid is so different. And so I actually learned so much from her in this moment because she told me, she was like, what really works for me is to sing a song in my head right before I go for my skill. I was like, wow, I would love to like watch you do that and tell me a little bit about your process. And it was awesome because she was singing a song. It was a Michael Jackson song. Oh, it was Beat It. And she was trying to beat her fears. She was singing in her head, just beat it, just beat it. And it was her way of saying she could do it while also distracting her brain at the same time from thinking about what could go wrong. And she would sing that song up until she went. And I think that was just a really cool moment for me as a coach to go, not one way works for everybody. Every kid is different. Everybody needs a different approach and some creativity, but every kid can get better. Every kid is coachable.
Absolutely. And I think you've said that a bunch today, and it's like 100% true. And I always tell kids, 10% of you are going to resonate with this, and 10% of you are going to resonate with this. And so, when coaches are like, everyone sit and visualize 3 routines, you're going to have 10% of kids who can do it well. And the other 10 are like, I got to pee. Oops, I forgot. And then they're blasting off to space in their mind, or, they're trying, or it's a little dark or foggy. And it comes down to like dominant senses a lot of the time. Some kids are super visual. Some are more audio. Some are more kinesthetic. And so like the kinesthetic kids are going to struggle with imagery because they feel like they're not doing it right, because they're feeling it in their body, but they're not seeing a movie in their mind. That's why it's so important to take it, so individually. It's like, there's so many kind of like, here's how you break through fear. Like, here are my 3 steps. And it's like, okay.
And anytime I give advice like that, I always say, this is what works for me. You have to learn yourself. It's a constant road of learning how to trust your body and your mind. But like, my step process for overcoming fear might work for some people. It might not for others, but you can use bits and pieces maybe of what works for me and put in what works for you. But it's really developing a relationship with yourself where you can trust yourself and you've learned what works.
Yes, 100%. And that's like the foundation from my perspective is awareness. So as soon as you realize this doesn't work, you don't go, oh no, I'm broken like I did and I quit. Like, oh, the thing that works for everybody else didn't work for me. I can't do it. Instead, it's, well, what does work? Let's find. If it's not this, we can cross that off the list. Great. On to the next. And it's all about that, like listening to yourself and just getting super creative and communicating and all that. So I'd love to talk a little more about kind of what you're doing with athletes now as you're giving back and you're in this sort of mentor role.
Yeah. It's been a really, really great year for me. I launched my business, which is called Gymnastics Mindset Mastery, and it's kind of everything that we've talked about. It's a really safe space for kids to ask questions, to fail, to get better, to learn how to overcome fears and mental blocks and how to be a competitor and a performer. And there's so many things in there that I feel like when I was a gymnast, they just weren't talked about, like it was just you're learning all the physical things of gymnastics. And it wasn't until college when I worked with a sports psychologist that I was like, whoa, the mental stuff actually makes you physically better. And so I wanted to create something where I could make that more known and, give back to the gymnastics community. And it's been the most fulfilling work that I've ever done. I love hearing from these kids that I'm able to help them, even though it's through a screen. I'm able to help these gymnasts become better and to believe in themselves. And it's my favorite work that I've ever done.
Yeah. Well, obviously I'm same boat,
We're on the same page here.
Yeah. Like being a coach and, having a kid try something mental, I was like, whoa, that worked. Okay. And it's like, you just see kind of the mind magic sprinkling into what these kids are able to do. And what I really appreciate is that so many people are kind of like coming out and are like, I can help with this. And I can let's talk about your mind. Let's talk about your mind. When I was quitting because of fear, it was because there was no solution. So even just the increased awareness around the importance of mental tools for kids is really encouraging from my perspective.
I think so too. And I think that's been another, big part of my story too, is I'm on social media and I post these gymnastics tips. And I think that it's a really great way to reach a larger audience of just like, for one kid seeing one video, it might make something click. Like that one video my mom sent me. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember it was life-changing. And so I think just being a person within the gymnastics community that is bringing positivity and love, I think that just is the best thing for gymnasts, is just to have an outlet where somebody is telling you, you can do it. This is possible. Yes. And so I'm very grateful to have a platform that I can use for good.
Absolutely. And I think the more that we can continue to educate, parents on what's an acceptable, what's a healthy coaching environment and what's possible as far as, these comebacks, and the more hope, the better is my.
Totally.
So if you could give one little nugget to that, 12-year-old girl who wants to be a college gymnast, who is, riding the roller coaster of life and things not always going her way, what would be your bit of advice?
It's so freaking cheesy, but follow your dreams. If your heart is telling you something, it's there for a reason. But, like I said before, be flexible, surrender a little bit, keep working towards your dreams, believe that you can do it, and see where that takes you. Just because you have one goal here does not mean that's the only thing that you're going to do. You can always pivot. When I had that injury, it felt life-shattering, but I pivoted and I tried again. When I had another injury, I didn't know what to do or if I should quit, but I pivoted. You can always pivot, but don't stop chasing your dreams. Don't stop chasing what you want in life.
I think one other thing that I would love to just call out is like, you went to school for advertising and then the doors closed. You were trying to get a job in advertising. It just wasn't working. It wasn't working. And then social media, you end up using your skills in a very different way than we had anticipated.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I would have forgotten to speak about that. But yeah, I went to school for advertising. My whole career goal was to get a job as an art director and do the whole corporate girl thing. I couldn't get a job. All of my classmates were getting them. I was really confused. I didn't understand what was happening. I was just as qualified for these positions. And looking back now, I'm so grateful because now instead of advertising for another company, I get to do it for myself and I get to use my creative brain to make content to help other people. And it was hard at the time. It was really hard to pivot, but I was able to pivot and figure it out and something better came of it.
Yep. And honestly, in my experience, it's always how it goes.
Oh,
when doors are closing, it's because that's not the path you're supposed to be on. And when you get on the right path, it's like doors just fly open and you walk through them.
Yeah, I love that.
That's not happening. You're just not there yet. You're not on the right path yet. So just like keep walking. And keep the dream alive because it's so powerful what can happen when you're driven by your passion.
Yeah, I just think that dream and that fun and that playfulness, that is what it is. That's just amazing. And I think when you can follow that, like Literally follow your heart, follow your dreams. It sounds cheesy, but it's so true. That piece inside of you is speaking to you for a reason. Follow it, see where it takes you. You might not go exactly where you think, but you're going to go somewhere great, always.
Absolutely. Well, Rebekah, this has been so inspiring and so fun. If people want to find you, if they're not already following you, how do they find you on the internet?
You can go to any of the socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's all just Rebekah Bean. It's spelled Rebekah Bean.